the sort of music that we were pursuing, you know. But then he actually said he liked that album, so I was quite amazed.
Do you think that in any way he's sort of been subconsciously a sub-model or a role model to you?
I don't know really. I mean, I mean, when I was younger, I was very sort of angry about it because, you know, I didn't grow up with him, and we had, you know, I wasn't a very sort of particularly happy child or anything. But I think now that I'm older, I mean, he died a few years ago, and I think when you get older, you kind of you get a bit more forgiving and a bit more understanding about why people are like they are, you know.
This is one of these.
I mean, I did consciously avoid folk music for a long time, just because I associated it with, you know, my childhood, really.
I guess kids can't help but, you know, for at least a period of time resenting what their parents represented or what their parents.
Yeah, exactly.
One of those very abstract kind of questions about you and your life in the '80s. This interviewer here seems to think the '80s were about idolatry and you know, the efficient production of pop music, whereas obviously that's at odds with what you're about. How would you characterize your life and your lifestyle throughout the '80s?
Well, God, I'm trying to think.
Well, yeah, we sort of, I guess, have established the fact that you turned your back on the idea of.
Well, I didn't. I mean, I still, you know, like making records and everything, but there are certain things I won't do in order to sell them, and you know, I don't want to sort of completely prostitute myself in order to be able to make a record, you know, and that means there are certain papers I won't talk to, certainly in England, you know, and I tried. I mean, I tended to avoid a lot of the sort of things that celebrities go to because I didn't really. You know, I couldn't see the point. I didn't. You know, there's always these, like, they tend to go to lots of charity dinners where everybody pays huge amounts of money and then goes out and buys a dress or a suit that costs a huge amount of money, and then they sort of clap each other on the back for having given a few bucks to some charity, you know, and it just seems like completely, you know, hypocritical to me, I think, really.
Was there a time when you felt like you had to play the game, though, and you sort of started to regret your own commitment to say your own principles, your own...
Well, I think when I started out, I mean, I was very young, you know, I was 19 when I had my first record out, and I was tended to be much more easily pushed around then, although musically I was always quite certain about how I wanted things to sound, and, you know, what I wanted the records to sound like, but as far as everything else went, I had no experience outside that, so, you know, they would sort of say, oh, why don't you go and, you know, wear a certain dress and go and do this TV show and things, and I'd think, oh, maybe I have to. And then I'd think, what the hell am I wearing this for? You know, I wouldn't be seen dead in this. It's like, why am I doing this? And why am I spending all my time in Germany doing television shows? You know, it's just not, it doesn't interest me. It's not got anything to do with music, really.
But did there ever come a time when you thought, well, commercially, there are just certain things you have to do in order to sustain your career?
Yeah, but I think you can be selective about them. I mean, if you just say, no, I'm not going to do anything, then, you know, then they've got no reason to kind of bother with you. But if you say, look, you know, I'll work really hard, I'll do the shows, and I'll do a certain amount of press, and I'll do a certain amount of whatever promotional stuff, but then from there on, my life is my own, you know, my private life's my own, and that's a separate thing.
What do you think were your main motivations? What kept you going? Was it just the love of the music, or was it the idea that other artists were supporting you, or that you had a very strong fan base?
Well, it was a combination of things, really. I think it was partly because I really can't imagine not doing music. You know, I mean, I love it so much, I couldn't imagine sort of doing something else, really. And also a certain amount of bloody-mindedness, really, because every time I had a problem with the record companies and they were kind of being totally unsupportive or whatever, you know, it would make me sort of depressed for a little while, and then I'd sort of think, right, I'll show you, you know. And it would sort of spur me on just out of pure bloody-mindedness to show them that I could be right, you know.
Is that an attitude you still carry, or have you kind of gotten past that stage?
Well, I'm more relaxed about it now. I try and get less uptight about things that I don't sort of necessarily agree with. But I still, as long as I get to make the records I want to make, then that's my main objective. And then you have to do what you can to ensure that happens. But everything else is kind of not as important as that,
So I guess in light of what you just said, that the success of this compilation has been sort of sweet vindication for you then.
Well, it's nice, it's good to know that there is a fan base and that people were looking to buy stuff, because I had an album out in '93 in England, and it was a company put it out that they signed it up when I'd already finished it, and it had been out in America for about 3 months by the time they signed it up. And then they didn't promote it at all. They didn't do anything with it. They didn't put a single out. It was like a complete waste of time, really. So it's nice when your records actually get a chance to get heard. That's the main thing.
How about this way of looking at it? Could it be that the times have sort of caught up with you, that you've sort of had a chance to prove yourself, to have things your way for a long time now, and people are starting to say, well, okay, I guess she's paid her dues, and now let's just accept her on her own terms? Well,
maybe, and also, there are more women around now who are less kind of, I don't know, I think it was very, when I started out, it was so ridiculously male-dominated, the music business. As far as all the record company executives went, there weren't any women in important jobs at record companies. And that has changed to a certain extent, and therefore, the attitude has slightly changed. It's still very male-dominated, but they did tend to prefer women. If they had a female artist, they wanted to be able to treat them like a Barbie doll, basically, and and dress them up and put them in. It's like they didn't want them to have much to do with their own records, really. They just wanted someone to front it, who looked right, and I think that's slightly changed now. You've got a lot more interesting sort of female artists around now. So I'm not sort of the only one who's trying to do it my way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Is that mainly a UK thing, or do you think it sort of cuts across borders?
Well, I don't know. I think it cuts across. I don't know too much about what's happening in Europe and stuff. But I suppose in America and the UK certainly there are more. Bjork has done very well, and it would have been interesting to see how a male record company executive would have dealt with someone who's as individual as she is, 15 years ago. They wouldn't have known what to do with it,
Surely from the perspective of quality, do you think there are more interesting female performers now?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Does gender matter to you at all?
Well, I don't. A lot of people think my songs are automatically about men, which I find quite a strange attitude, because it's like, I don't write specifically about men, you know what I mean? They're not all about men, and for me, I try to make them sort of as ambiguous as possible about, gender-wise, because, there are a lot of, people experience a lot of the same emotions. It's not like all men are horrible and all women are sort of put upon, That's not the way it is, and I try to sort of reflect a kind of reasonable balance in there, I think.
Looking at the younger artists now, do you think they're faced with the same sort of decisions you were faced with, or are people more street smart now? Has the music business advanced to the point now where people no longer have to sort of play games and compromise their art?
No, I think they all end up compromising it, really. Most of them do.
How would you counsel somebody to stick to their morals and to their integrity?
Well, I think they try and stick to it, but I think eventually, even if it's just with a choice of what single comes out, if you've made an album and you're proud of all the songs on it, you shouldn't have any songs on there that you don't want released, basically. So, you shouldn't be putting yourself in a position where they can pick one that you don't like to put out as a single, really. And, there are ways of sort of avoiding certain tracks, but it's trial and error, really, and a lot of it depends on luck and whatever,
Can you think of younger artists who are succeeding in doing it their way, who able to command your respect simply because of their